This is the question that I have for task 1, and the text of the question, I will copy it here for you. It says, let me just make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. It says the maps show improvements that have been made to a university campus between 2010 and the present day. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So basically the only thing that here is important is the improvements that have been made. That's one thing. And then that have been made to university campus, so it doesn't say which university, it just says a university. And then there are two times for the map, for the two maps. The one is 2010 and one is the present day. Okay, so first of all, because one is 2010, one is the present day, we should be able to use present perfect a lot. We can also use just simple present to talk about the present day, or we can talk about simple past to talk about 2010. We can do all of those things, but we can't really use past perfect, for example. But present perfect we can definitely use with no problem. Okay, so that's one consideration about this. And now let's take a look at the two maps here. First of all, this map, I'm going to make it a little bit larger. So as you see, in this map, we have University Campus in 2010. We have this building called University Offices. And then we have University Accommodation, Student Accommodation, and another student accommodation here. So two student accommodations on two sides of the road. Then we have the teaching block for both art and science. And we have a shop, or so two shops, and we have a restaurant, and we have a lawn and seating area, and we have a lake. All right. And then we have one road here and one road here, and then we have some trees. Okay. Now for that was for 2010. Now for the present day, you can see that that has changed. Okay, you can see here that now what has changed is that this student accommodation has disappeared, and instead we have a student accommodation, two student accommodations here and another one here. So previously there were two, and those two, one of them has stayed the same, this one, and then two have been added, the blue ones, and then this one has completely disappeared. Also, this building is interesting because it has it's called student facilities. It has shops and offices and etc. Okay, and you will see that basically what that means is that these shops and probably this restaurant, but it's not really clear what happened to this restaurant, but maybe because it says etc., maybe the restaurant moved in there, but we don't know. But the shops definitely moved into this building, and there's no shops in the new map. Also, this green area around the lake has disappeared completely, but you can see that there are more trees now. Okay, there's one extra tree here, one extra tree here, and here there are 3 trees, here there are only 2. So we have more trees, right? What else? The teaching block, art and science, has been divided into 2 buildings, the art building and the science building. And the teaching block itself has disappeared. It's been replaced by 2 modern buildings. And then these university offices, this is another building that has moved into this building here because we have offices. And you can see that that has completely disappeared. Instead, this one has been kind of split into two. Alright, so those are the changes. And then the final change, that is a small change, is that this road has been added. And this road, you can see in 2010, this road doesn't exist. But in 2021, which is now, this road has been added, probably to give better access to this high-rise, this large building here. Alright. We're going to just stack them here like this. I already wrote the essay for this. It was actually difficult to write the essay for this one. It was more difficult than I expected. First of all, I was able to keep it really short. Okay, I have basically kept it at about 217. Okay, and the minimum for task 1 is 150. First, the introduction. The two maps provide an aerial view of a university campus in 2010 and now. Okay, and that's all that I have included. I haven't included anything else in the introduction because I want to keep the introduction short because there's a lot to cover in the 2 paragraphs. So actually I have 3 paragraphs. First of all, let's talk about the overall. The overall, I have some ideas about the overall, but I want to know what you guys think. And by the way, here's the link to the question if you want to look at it on your own computers. Yes, that's a good thing to say. It has been modernized and it has more student accommodation, which means that the student population has increased. And so they have modernized and the university is also growing, right? Because the art and science have to be separated, for example. They have to have their own building. And then, these small buildings, the restaurant, the shop are not working anymore. You have to replace them with larger buildings. So that's a sign of the university growing. And also, since those small buildings have been replaced with high-rises, that's a sign that it is being modernized, yes. As you know, overall is for you to basically try to talk about trends and general things that are happening without going into detail. Especially with maps, you have to talk about the trends, what has happened, how things have changed between 2010 and now. So it says, overall, it seems that the university has grown and hence increased the capacity of all buildings by adding several high-rises while reducing the number of buildings. The overall number of buildings has been reduced, I think. Let's take a look. Here we have in 2010 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So from 7 to 6. And of course, that's considering the fact that we consider these shops 2. Anyways, so that was one thing that was not correct on the website. If you look at the sample essay on the website, it says that, well, first of all, it doesn't have an overview and it doesn't have paragraphs. It's just an introduction and a big paragraph. So that wouldn't get you a good coherent score. As you know, it is important to have several paragraphs, at least 4, and have a separate overview, or at least put your overview with one of the paragraphs, but that would be confusing, so having a separate overview would be a good idea. And also, one mistake, as I mentioned, they have made there is that they said that the number of buildings have increased, which is not true. Now, what do you think about organizing the paragraphs? How would you organize the paragraphs, and how many paragraphs would you have? yeah, so it was difficult for me to come to a conclusion about how to divide the information, but basically I try to talk a little bit about the smaller buildings and then the larger buildings, especially these buildings that moved into this larger building here. I try to talk about that and mention that, because that would probably take one paragraph, right, to talk about. So I tried to talk about that. So you can see here those smaller buildings disappeared in and were kind of aggregated into this building. So that's one thing that I tried to mention in one paragraph, and then everything else in another paragraph, and then things that have happened to the outdoor facilities, that would be a third small paragraph. So that's what I did. Let me show you my first paragraph here. They haven't removed all of the natural scenery. The trees are still there. Yeah. You can say they reduced it. Yeah. That would be a good idea to probably mention. Yeah. Have been added hires while reducing the number of buildings. We can say the green spaces have also been considerably reduced. Something like that we can add. Now, first of all, smaller buildings, namely the shops and the restaurant, have been aggregated into the larger student services building, which also includes the university offices. And I say it includes the university offices because here it uses the word offices. And then because it says etc., I'm assuming that this large building is probably needs some kind of cafeteria or small, fast food joint or something. So I'm saying that the restaurant and the shop together have been aggregated into that building here, into the student facilities building. Now, smaller buildings, namely the shops and the restaurant, have been aggregated into the larger student services building, which also includes the university offices. The building that houses those offices, so I'm talking about this building now, the building that houses those offices in 2010, so this should be housed actually. The building that housed those offices in 2010 has been replaced by a modern building and renamed Science Building. So this building has moved into the student facilities, but instead of the university offices, now we have a science building. So that's the first paragraph. Do you have any questions, any comments? Now, before we go over the second paragraph, pay attention here that I used namely, and I have mentioned previously that when you are using the word namely, namely is different from including or such as, or for example, things like that. When you are using the word namely, you have to name everything that is included. Okay, so that's what I did. The shops and the restaurant. And you see the shops has S because there are two shops, and restaurant has no S because there is only one restaurant. And then here I've added a noun clause. The building that housed those offices has been replaced by a modern building and renamed. So that's a complex sentence. And you can see here that I have been very careful about what I am capitalizing, what I'm not capitalizing. So here, science building, I have capitalized. But other buildings, I have not capitalized. So, for example, the restaurant, that's not the name of the building. So you don't have to capitalize that. So you can't really go based on capitalization in the map here. That's a different kind of system. Here you have to have your own system that goes based on the names of the buildings. And if you're only talking about the type of the building, then it is not necessary to capitalize that, like restaurant and shops. Those are common nouns. They're not proper nouns. as for the larger buildings, so here you can see that my logic was smaller buildings for paragraph 1 and then larger buildings for paragraph 2, right? So that's how I'm trying to aim for a high band score coherence and cohesion, especially coherence. As for the large buildings, namely the teaching block and the 2 student accommodation buildings. So that's the teaching block here and 2 student accommodation buildings here and here. So those 3 are the larger ones. And the student accommodation buildings, they have been expanded and modernized. So they have been expanded and modernized, well, except this one that hasn't changed, but the other 2 have been expanded and modernized. The teaching block has been also renamed the arts building. This one has been renamed the arts building. It is probably a better idea to change it here and say the teaching block has been split into the arts building and the science building. Or we can say buildings here and we can delete this one. The arts building and the science, the arts and the science buildings. And then this B would be small because that's not the name anymore. Compared to the teaching block in 2010. Let's remove this in 2010 here because it's extra. The 2 student dormitory towers, let's put in 2010 here, right? Were built on both sides of the road, So both sides of the road, I'm talking about this road here, right? And both sides of the road is, I'm talking about these 2 buildings, student accommodation. And you don't have to call it student accommodation. You can call it dormitory towers, residence, you can call it any of those things. The 2 student dormitory towers in 2010 were built, and this is simple past because it happened in 2010, on both sides of the road. The southern building, so this one is the southern one, has been demolished, and a larger one has been built in close proximity of the western building, this one. So when that one demolished, this one was built in close proximity, and I'm noticing that I missed a comma here, so let me put the comma there. It's a compound sentence here. Southern building has been demolished, and just to add a little bit of cohesion, and instead, between 2 commas, a larger one has been built in close proximity of the western dormitory, maybe, okay? A new dorm has also been built, and see here, instead of in addition or furthermore, I put the also here, and that will allow me to have higher band score cohesion, because cohesion, if it's at the beginning, is mechanical, but if it's embedded inside the sentence in a way that it doesn't attract attention, that's better. A new dorm has also been built on the site of where the restaurant used to be in 2010. Okay, and that is this one. Okay, there used to be a restaurant here, but not anymore. Instead of a restaurant, we have another dorm. Okay, so I talked about all 3 dorms now. Okay, so last paragraph here, and if you remember, I mentioned that the last paragraph is just a tiny paragraph about those changes that happened outside. All right, so let's take a look here. Furthermore, following the moving of the shops and the offices, the lawn and seating area that surrounded the lake have been removed, and more trees have been planted instead. So here I can probably add in 2010 have been removed, and more trees have been planted instead. A road has also been added to provide better access to the newly built student residence. So here you can see that I used student residence as another synonym for dorm, for dormitory, for dormitory, student residence, and student accommodation. So I just wanted to play with these synonyms here. And then what I'm talking about here is that area around the lake that disappeared, and also this road. Okay, those are the two things that I'm talking about, and you can see. And here I said since the restaurant and the shops and the offices were removed, but then I thought that would be an assumption, because I'm assuming that was the reason that they removed the green space around here, and that's an assumption. It has not been mentioned. So then I changed that and I just said since or following, and so that means that this was not the reason for that. It was just at the same time or around the same time. That's it. That's the essay, and as I mentioned, it's right now 217 words, and I think I covered everything. Do you have any questions? Yeah, you can say in 2000 there were 2 student dorms on both sides of the road. On both sides of the road, not in. Yes, I just said aerial view because it's kind of like an aerial view, because you're looking at it not just like a map, but like you are sitting in a helicopter or a drone and you're looking at it, right? So I just wanted to use the word aerial to improve my vocabulary score. The 2 maps provide a visual comparison between 2010 and now. The visual comparison of a university campus in between 2010 and now. Yeah. No, because as for is different. As for means regarding. For the larger buildings, it doesn't really have that same meaning. It's kind of ungrammatical here. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Yeah, but I think we did a good job. We put everything in there, so I think this is gonna get a good mark, easily 8.5 or 9. I will clean it up a little bit, although it doesn't really need cleaning up, and I'll put it on the website, modernize the website and change it a little bit, and so now it's ready to have more essays on it. So in the upcoming weeks we'll have more essays on the website. Just keep checking it, and the webinar essays will show up there slowly. Yeah, it looks better, but it took a while. You're welcome, and have a good day, guys.